So, former Republican Congressman Charlie Dent, what's your take on all this?
My take is this, that these funds have been authorized and appropriated by the Congress. The Congress does not tell the executive these funds they're not acting in an advisory capacity. This is a command. When the Congress passes an appropriations law, the executive shall spend that money. The executive has very little authority to impound money or even freeze it on a temporary basis. So I think that the Trump administration is in trouble. This action actually reminds me of the travel ban from the Trump one, where they issued an executive order, created mayhem at the airports, and it took a while to sort it all out. I feel like that's what's happening right now. And in fact, there's lawyers in Washington, I'm sure, are just salivating right now because everybody's calling their lawyers, and there are going to be lawsuits flying every which way. Who is exempted from this order? Who is not? There's a lot of ambiguity here. We're not sure how pervasive this pause is, but it's wreaking havoc. And so I suspect, the judge's order may have helped, but Congress's authority here is clear in the Constitution. This is an Article I authority. The president cannot impound funds.
Bakari, you're an attorney. I don't know if you were listening to Stephen Miller earlier today, but he basically just said he doesn't think that it's constitutional for Congress to mandate that President Trump give a 30-day notice, as the law would require, before he fires inspectors general. And I'm wondering if you think that is emblematic of kind of the Trump administration's posture here. Just, we're going to do what we're going to do, and we'll see if anybody challenges.
I think so. And I think whether or not you're looking at the firing of the inspector generals or this chaos caused by this governmental freeze, you're seeing that Stephen Miller is putting his thumbprint on, the future of what this country looks like. And Project 2025, which people talked about till they were blue in the face, is actually coming to fruition. This is chaos. And I actually applaud Congressman Dent for going back to the Muslim ban, because we were told that this was going to be a different Trump administration, that you weren't going to have the chaos that we saw in the first one. But here we are again.
Funding is being cut off to the center or to parents who need it to help their kids with childcare, to universities that are doing medical research, who are, billing the research institutions like the NIH for the research they're doing, unsure whether they will get a reimbursement. I've got a nonprofit in Virginia that specializes in helping low-income people and seniors apply for Medicaid. Some of their staff are funded by a federal grant. They think those staffers will potentially lose their jobs. Veterans yesterday told me they had been unable to access the VA portal for even getting medical appointments at the VA. And I have a brand new VA clinic scheduled to open in Fredericksburg in February. The opening date is still scheduled, but they believe they're under a hiring freeze and can't hire the staff that they need to serve veterans in that population. This is all real-time worries coming in from Virginians. It is an illegal order. The Budget Act of 1974 and the Constitution basically say that the budget is congressional. It's an Article I power. Once we do an appropriations deal and we reach a deal that is signed by the president, the executive has to spend those funds in accord with the budget. The president can't unilaterally decide, no, there's a budget document, but I'm going to ignore it. But, Nicole, I really want to focus on this last thing. What the president is doing is not only illegal, it's not only chaotic and damaging to Virginians, it's betraying a deep insecurity, and let me explain why. As you know, we're working on a budget deal right now. The Republicans kicked the budget to March 14. The president has 2 Republican houses. If he wants to cut the budget, he's got majorities in both houses. He could just work with them to do it the lawful way, reach a budget that matches the Trump priorities over the course of the next 6 weeks. The fact that he's not doing that he's using this illegal unilateral executive strategy, means he doesn't have confidence that the Republican leadership in both houses will go along with the extremity of the actions that he's taking. That should tell us something.
Donald Trump's executive order shutting off government funding for a whole host of programs that impact all Americans is on a very brief hold thanks to a last-minute order from a federal judge. But the order has already detonated and caused a whole bunch of chaos and anxiety. In Connecticut, programs like Head Start, which provides childcare and early education for kids of low-income families and allows parents to not have to choose between working and watching their kids, saw its reimbursement system shut down today. Senator Chris Murphy called out the Trump administration for claiming that cuts would not impact programs that provide assistance to individuals, saying, quote, "Don't believe these people. In Connecticut, the Head Start reimbursement system is shut down. Preschools cannot pay staff and will need to start laying off staff very soon and sending little kids home." Joining us now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Senator, tell me first what the sort of lived reality is for folks in your state and what you're hearing is happening.
There's panic in Connecticut, as you have reported all day. Medicaid stopped being accessible to make payments to doctors and hospitals today. Head Start couldn't access their payment programmings and started making plans to lay off staff and send children home. They're still making those plans because, as you also mentioned, the order from the court is only good for a few days. The funding for emergency disaster relief has been suspended. It appears that money going to our elementary schools to help pay for books and teachers has been suspended. Literally, the lifeblood of our communities, the programs that keep us alive, that educate our kids, that protect our neighborhoods, all disappeared overnight. And why? Why? The answer is simple. Donald Trump is seizing power. He is seizing power. And what an autocrat does is put himself and only himself in charge of doling out money so that he can give that money to his friends and to his loyalists. And so he can deny that money to people that are not loyal to him. And that is what Donald Trump is preparing to do. Now, tonight, he didn't get away with it for more than a handful of hours, but it doesn't mean that those recipients of dollars, those schools, those hospitals, those Head Start centers won't wake up tomorrow morning still in chaos, not knowing whether they are going to, by the end of next week, still be able to employ people and provide those services. He's not doing it to try to make government more efficient. He is doing it to be able to perpetuate a fundamental corruption. Donald Trump rewarding his friends and his billionaires' friends' companies and punishing Democrats and states that don't line up and pledge loyalty to him.
Senator, the illegality of it has an echo to the incompetence of the first Trump presidency. And I wonder how you factor in everything you talked about, along with sort of a quintessential feature of Trumpian politics, which is the clunkiness and the incompetence of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more thought being put into this assault on democracy than in the first term. A lot of us warned that Trump was going to be much more effective and efficient in destroying democracy this time than the first time, in part because there are no adults who believe in the rule of law surrounding him at the White House. You have to sort of view the last week as part of one very planned out attack on our democracy, a very planned out assault on the rule of law. The immunization of political violence, the firing of all the inspectors general who try to root out corruption inside of these agencies, and now the seizure of federal programs. It's all designed to allow Trump to get away with corruption, to allow him to basically turn our government into an enrichment machine for himself and his friends. None of it is accidental. Some of it looks ham-handed. But who knows? Maybe this case makes its way to the Supreme Court very shortly, and Trump's hand-picked judges, many of them, at least one of them, proven to be deeply corrupt, allows him to get away with it.
You're right in that these were the warnings made by President Joe Biden, by Vice President Kamala Harris, folks like yourself, a whole bunch of people in the media, and Trump was elected. It doesn't mean that the country wanted this, but this is what the country's going to get. The Democrats seemed, President Kamala excluded. You seem to have clarity and sort of political vigor every day since the election, but a lot of your fellow Democrats have not. They seemed awakened to the reality of the implementation of an abandoning of a democracy and an operationalizing of not just Project 2025, but a corrupt autocracy. What are the conversations going on behind the scenes with your Democratic colleagues about how to respond?
The US government. Dr. Biden said that the delay in the release of documents may be risk of confidential informants and also be an embracement to the intelligence committee. The various government agencies like FBI or CIA were concerned that the release of these documents may jeopardize national security. Even though the death occurred 61 years ago, they believe it may be a risk of confidential information. He said there are also a concern that the main reason these have not been released because of embarrassment it could bring to US. The mafia. Theorists felt that Oswald was hired by a mafia to kill the president, George Biden said. Dr. Biden said there was a feeling that he would